Hi, welcome back to Brown Girl Blue. My name is Tabitha, and on this channel, I talk about my childhood memories being raised in the Jehovah's Witness religion. So today, I want to talk about my first conversation about death with my dad. I was, I think, maybe five, because I hadn't started school yet. And well, kindergarten. I hadn't started in kindergarten yet. And I think we were reading out of, you remember the book that was made for the youth or young people? It was My Little Book of Bible Stories. It was a yellow book with red letters on the front. And I think my dad was reading me, it was either about the two brothers, Cain and Abel, who the children of Adam and Eve, and how Cain had killed Abel. And he was telling me this story, and I just remember I was wondering what did that mean that he killed him? And my dad said, "Oh, well, he's dead." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" And my dad told me, "Well, dead means that you are dead and you're not living anymore, and you're in the ground. And when you die, they bury you in the ground, and you don't get to see your family anymore or your friends." And I cried. I was so devastated. I just couldn't imagine at the age of 5 being in the ground and in a box and not being able to see my family, my mom and dad, my 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 little friends that I had, I had next door neighbors, friends, anything that I liked. I couldn't have eat anymore. I couldn't ride my bike or play with my toys, and I didn't understand. It was just so heartbreaking. And I remember that was the first feeling that I had of true sadness. I remember I just started crying, like really like big tears. Just I couldn't understand why that had to happen to us or to me. And I said, "Oh, it's okay. Everybody dies." And I was like, "Everybody?" And I just remember just how worse and worse. And I just felt so scared and just, I was just so sad. I just remember being really, really sad and just trying to get my head around like what is this thing like it's because I like being alive, like I like playing, like having fun, and to think that this was going to end and it'd just be over. And I'm trying to think how my dad backpedaled out of it. I don't quite remember, but I think he said, "Oh, like one day you won't be dead anymore. You're going to be resurrected." And I was like, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, there'll come a time when Jesus will resurrect you from the grave." I was like, "Oh, so I'll be asleep?" He said, "No, you're not asleep. You'll be dead." And he was very specific of letting me know that it's not like being asleep. You're not going to just wake up on your own. He said, I remember he got really kind of descriptive, in hindsight, like that was a bit much for I would never do that to a child of 5 years old. I mean, that's just too much. That's too much. And I remember he said that you would I think he told me about I would decay. Like I would I don't know if he used the word decay, but I remember he was saying pretty much, what my body looked like now, it wouldn't look that same way after you die. Like things happen to you. And that gave me nightmares. And I just wonder why would it be okay to have such a descriptive conversation like that with a child? And then I remember when going to the Kingdom Hall, there was never a separate service for children. The children were in the same meeting place as the adults. And so we got to hear all of the very, adult type thoughts that were being spoken. We got to hear all of that. So hearing about, people dying and God's judgment and and Armageddon, and how everything will be on fire and burning, and people will be screaming and running away, and like all those big heavy visualizations. I got to hear all of that. So there was never a light and kitty version. It was always like, this is what we believe, and everyone gets to hear all the information at the same time. And so my dad, when he told me about death the first time, there was no gentle way. He was just very a matter of fact about death. And it was just so, I can still remember that feeling where I was just devastated. I just couldn't get my head around about death. Like, that's horrible. Like, why do we have to die? And then of course, he told me about the story of why, Adam and Eve, and it was all Eve's fault of why we have death. I was like, what? But why is it like, that's such a horrible thing that we have to die because someone ate a piece of fruit? And and oh my gosh, it was horrific. I just remember it being really, really hard to fully understand about this concept of death. I just know it made me not feel good, and I didn't enjoy it. And so back to the backpedaling, I think my dad backpedaled a little bit, and he said, oh, well, even though you die, it won't be forever. If you're, God or Jesus will resurrect you and you have your body back. But then when you come back, you're going to be judged. And and they said that they're going to look at your whole life about what you've done. And if you were a good person, meaning if you were a good Jehovah's Witness, then you'll come back to be in good standing with him. And if not, then you'll be in bad standing. Like, God's not going to be very pleased with you. And so I felt like this was a no-win situation. You have death, and then even when you come back, it's not over yet. You still have to be judged for things. You have to be judged to the standard of were you a good enough person. And so to have this conversation at such a young age, it was just really confusing. And I just remember it was before that discussion about death. I remember I didn't really have any serious thoughts about things. Like, I would have my toys. I had my little, I think it was like Fisher Price shopping cart and my little vacuum cleaner. And, I pretend I was cleaning the house with my mom, or had my dolls and my other toys. And, just being a child. And when he told me about death, I just remember it was like this timestamp of this moment to where he had me come to the realization that all is not well all the time. And it was just a really tough conversation to have with my dad about death. Like, I don't even know why he felt he needed to go into that much detail, but he did. And, I think about some of the stories and that publication that was designed for children. In hindsight, that was more, that book, I think, should put it for older kids, because there were some really tough topics in that book. I mean, they were about wars and, and people dying and, and just all kind of really heavy themes. It was not a feel good read. There was always some very life demanding lesson after every lesson. And it was down to, judging your behavior, and God is always watching you, and don't mess up because it'll be accounted for. Yeah, but that conversation about death with my dad, like, that was definitely a timestamp moment, and I would never forget that. And I would never forget how it made me feel. It was just like the life had been literally just removed from me, where it was such a horrible feeling to to be explained, to someone to explain death like that to you at such a young age. It was memorable. It was definitely memorable. And I will never, never, ever forget that. So, do you have any experiences that you have had where your parents had some, like really heavy, dark conversations about Bible-based lessons that you experienced? Whether from that my little book of Bibles, my book of Bible stories, or you remember going to meetings and hearing about Armageddon, hear about like everything being really somber. If you had those experiences, please share that with me in the comments. I would love to read your experiences and compare them to mine. But so that was my conversation with my dad about the topic of death at the age of 5. That's it for today. Thank you for watching Brown Girl Blue. My name is Tabitha, and I will see you next time.